Well, big businesses, holiday homeowners and landlords are among those hardest hit by the Victorian government's budget as the state attempts to rein in debt. A COVID debt levy has been introduced, meaning businesses with a national payroll of more than $10 million will pay additional payroll tax of 0.5%. Joining me now live is Victoria Chamber of Commerce and Industry Chief Executive Paul Guerra. Paul, good morning. Thanks for joining us. What's your reaction to this budget?
Yeah, good morning, Danica. Well, it's a bit tough if you're a medium business, a large business or a landowner at the moment. You're going to pay more come 1 July, and that's going to be a really difficult pill to swallow for a lot of businesses across the state.
And how many businesses do you expect will be impacted by these increases?
Yeah, it'll be a significant number. What's interesting is that small business has largely been spared, aside from the work cover premium increase, from any other increase. So the state government's done a good job at sort of making sure that they're cushioned so that they're not going to be impacted, but certainly medium and large businesses and property owners, and actually extends to private schools as well, who'll now payroll tax. So, across the board, there's quite a big hit, and a number of businesses and institutions are going to be paying more tax or more levies from 1 July.
How do you think this is going to be received by business? Businesses were closed for so many years during one consecutive lockdown after another in Victoria, and now they've got to foot the bill essentially for the lockdowns. How do you think they'll react to this?
Yeah, and that's the point, right? So businesses were locked down because the government essentially locked the state down to stop the virus spread. It wasn't a business choice to lock down, but everybody complied. Through that period, they lost earnings, they lost profit, they got some support back from the state government and federal governments, but not enough to replace the profits that they would have made. And ultimately, profits go back into developing the business and paying for staff. So they've taken a hit through that. Now, for the next 10 years, we're going to take a hit on repaying that COVID debt levy. That will result in some businesses deciding not to continue in this state, but it will certainly most likely result in job losses and businesses not expanding beyond where they are today. It's going to be a difficult environment over the next period.
Yeah, 10 years is a very long time. What other options do you think Dan Andrews had here? Debt has soared to $171 billion. What other options should have been on the table?
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because the debt balloon is really starting to impact Victoria's ability to move ahead with where the other states, and in fact, where the rest of the world is at as well. So the debt did need to be reduced. Sticking it just to business, though, is not the right approach here. Our view is that, the lockdown occurred. We can't look back. It occurred. There's a debt that's been racked up as a result of that. Perhaps it might have been time for the federal government to lean in a little bit and help Victoria at its time where it needs some extra cash, so that we don't spend the next 10 years just repaying the debt. We get a balance of repaying the debt plus looking at growth opportunities. And ultimately, that's where we have to flip to now. What can we do from a growth perspective so that this debt can be paid off quicker and we can still have some vibrancy in the market down here?
Who do you think are the winners from this budget?
Oh, very clearly, small business is the large winner out of this, aside from the work cover premium increase, which will still be significant, but not as much as what the other businesses are going to pick up. So basically, if you're a payroll under 3.6 million, you've done really well out of this. Over 3.6 million, it progressively gets worse all the way up to $100 million payroll. And anybody that owns multiple properties is really going to struggle as a result of this.
There's been some commentary that this will make Victoria one of the worst states in the country to do business with. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so we're certainly going to be the highest tax from what we can work out, and that will be a disincentive for some businesses to come and either start up or expand their operations in Victoria. The one positive that we saw out of it as well is really it's true stamp duty reform, and that's something that we do lean into the government and say that's a great opportunity that will set Victoria up for the future, where ultimately over the next 10 years stamp duty will be abolished, and there will be grandfathered in, so that once the property transact in a commercial or industrial, it'll then go into a system where over 10 years the stamp duty will finally be gone, which will be good. We won't see an absolute return on that for probably 30 to 40 years. So this is a reform that will take some time to realise, but it's a step in the right direction.
All right. Well, it's certainly going to be an interesting 10 years ahead, as you said, Paul. Paul Guerra, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure. Thanks, Danica.